amici, ciao a tutti, and welcome to the TueZday Garage. This week we're ready, man. It's time to go ahead and disable the Z. And we've got the garage clean, we've got a lot of space. I'm still not sure how I want to orient the car inside the garage, but we're going to get to that. But first, we need to get some other preparations done. I've got Lily here with me today.
Hi.
And we need to go ahead and remove the bonnet and take the front end off, because those are two pieces of the car I definitely do not want on it and getting messed up. So we're going to get those carefully removed, and then it's time to go ahead and disable this car, which means we need to drain the fuel lines and get rid of all the fuel pressure inside the fuel rail of the engine. And we also need to go ahead and take the battery out and remove all the power from the car. We'll also probably take some time to get it oriented here inside the garage, because we need room for our cherry picker. And please excuse the noise. We've got the garage door open because there is a beautiful Hawaiian breeze right now. We got the trade winds in effect, and without this door open, it's terrible in here. So
Hawaiian winter.
So we're gonna get on that, and I'll tell you what, we're gonna bring you along. We're gonna set up a little time lapse so you can kind of see us removing the bonnet in the front, and yeah, let's get it knocked out.
We're going to start taking the front apart by first removing the hood. On each side of the hood there are two 12mm bolts, easily removed, but this being the very first time that this car's ever had its hood removed, the hinges were still very much glued to the hood, so we had to pry those off a little bit, and pop, there we go. Easy enough. A difficult job for one person, but with two it can be managed, and keep the hood in balance so that it doesn't go flying off to the other side. The nose panel was already loose, so we just kind of pulled that right off the top. And we had to remove the turn signal lights on the side to access the two 10mm bolts that are up holding the fender and the bumper together. Now these require a deep well socket, so make sure you have one on hand. In order to get the two other remaining bolts that hold the bumper to the fender, we had to have Lily turn the wheels to one side and the other, which allowed me to have access to reach up there. This was made a lot easier because the undercovers were not on the car. Once that's done, remove the 4 bolts that are holding the bumper on right underneath where the nose panel was, and the bumper just comes right off.
Got the entire front, as much as we need to, off. I would really like to actually remove the fenders as well, but right now with the body kit, it's just not possible. And when I put the side skirts on, I decided to use rivets instead of screws, so that's just kind of a thing. So what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll put some sort of protective coating over the fenders themselves, so we make sure we don't scratch them, or just be really conscious of not leaning over and touching on them, or make sure I'm definitely not wearing any clothes that have metal in the front that could cause any scratches on there. But
wait, why would clothes have metal in the front?
Like your zippers and buttons and stuff.
Just walking down the street.
So the one thing that Lily and I did after that time lapse was we removed the actual bumper assembly from the front. And really the whole reason why we're taking the front end off is not only one for protection reasons to keep it safe, but we also want to provide way more room in the front of the car, because as I discussed before, we have this really stupid step that's in front of the car, or in the front of the garage here, which limits the movement of the cherry picker, so we got to get rid of that. Right now the car is still completely drivable, and there's one thing that we need to do while it's still drivable, and that's to drain the fuel system. All right. Good and dead. No more fuel pressure should be in there. We disconnected it. Car is not starting. That means there is no fuel in the lines to the engine, so that's a good sign. That means everything should be good and no longer under pressure. There might actually still be some fuel pressure in the fuel rail itself, but we're not even going to get down that far. Once this engine comes out, we're going to keep it whole and probably try and get rid of it or sell it off that way. Now, the one thing we also want to do is go ahead and disconnect the battery, because we don't need this battery here just wasting away while we are doing work on the car. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the negative first. Always negative first, and then we'll disconnect the positive. All right. And like we talked about before, this is probably where we're going to actually mount our catch can and the coolant reservoir, because what'll end up happening is the custom radiator is going to be down in the front of the car here, and because it's going to be lower than the engine itself, we're going to have to create our reservoir with a bottleneck up high, so it'll be right here. We actually already have the part in stock over on our shelves, ready to go, so we're good to go there. Now, just to make sure I don't lose it, I'm going to go ahead and put this fusible link back in place, because that is just smart mechanicking. And you should do that with anything. Like anytime you remove a bolt or a screw, just put it right back where it was, or if you don't, put it inside a baggie and label it. Alright, so one of the things that we're going to have to do is probably off camera, like in between now and next Tuesday, is we're going to go ahead and drain all the fluids in the car. We're going to get the oil out of the engine, get the oil out of the transmission. We're going to have to get the coolant out of the radiator and get that ready to pull out. But what we could probably do in the meantime is we can go ahead and remove all the intake system and intake piping, because none of that's going to be reused with the new engine. So I'll tell you what, Lily's going to help me get rid of all that stuff, and because we don't need it now, we're not going to drive it anymore, and we'll be right back with you. Now, even though I'm not going to be reusing any of this stuff, I still want to be careful not to go and like crack hoses and stuff, because that's just bad. That's just bad juju, man. So anyway, I got to be a little more careful. And the last two things we're going to remove are actually the intake tubes that would go from here to the engine bay. You notice I'm trying to be super careful to not smash the radiator on its way out. And unfortunately, this one's giving me a lick of trouble because the coolant reservoir is on that side. So you can see it's all blank up here, which is great because that's really what it needs to be. Like I said before, up front we need all that room to put a custom radiator, intercooler, and then I actually have the actual piping for an R33 Skyline that we're going to put in to go from the intercooler up to the engine on both sides. So that is molto bene. The next thing that we got to do, like we said, was drain all the fluids, and we've got to remove all the wiring on the top of the engine. A very tedious job, and luckily this wiring is super fresh. As you know, this car only has 100,000 miles on it, so everything in this car is really fresh, but we still want to take our time because we don't want to break connectors. We don't want to have the wiring protecting broken, so we really want to make sure we're taking our time, because that's the kind of stuff that we want to try to eventually turn into some money at the end of this project. We're not too worried about the mass airflow meters. I do have two Z32 mass airflow meters. However, after more consideration, rather than going with a dual MAF setup on the RB, we're going to be doing a Link ECU that has a built-in map sensor. It's going to just provide way more benefit to us down the road, because the Link ECU actually also has a built-in boost control. So it's going to do everything we need all in one system that also interfaces with our computer, and we could mess and map with it in real time. Plus, we are going to have Mr. Tom Van Dyke, the Mr. Tom Van Dyke from Custom Import Arts, fly out here from Belgium to finally tune our RB when it's done, which is super rad. I'm looking totally forward to that. So, amici, that's going to be it for this week. Big thanks to Lily, our camera person this wonderful day.
Shout out.
Shout out. And but yeah, in the meantime, we're gonna do all the little gross stuff, and I think the next time we're together, we're gonna talk about the underside of the car, the exhaust, the drivetrain, the transmission, and the starter, all those other pieces and parts that we need to remove to go ahead and get ready to pull this out. And then I think, yeah, in 2 weeks we're gonna be picking this dude straight out of out of the car. So we got some work to do in the meantime. Until then, ciao a tutti and aloha. Bye-bye.